What if I told you that charging more for your design work could actually get you better clients and more projects? It sounds backwards, but it's true. Hey there, I'm Mark Des Cotes, and I founded Resourceful Designer to help graphic and web designers run better businesses so you have time to do what you love, designing. Now here is what I see happening in our industry. Designers are undercutting each other on price, competing with platforms like Fiverr and Upwork. They think that lower prices will get them more clients and more work. But here's the reality. When you charge too little, potential clients don't take you seriously. They assume that something's wrong. Now, I learned this the hard way more than a decade ago. I was submitting proposals week after week and losing bid after bid. I was competing against larger agencies from bigger cities with much higher overhead than me. And yet, I was still losing, and I couldn't figure out how they were undercutting me. Then one client finally told me what was happening. It turned out they were not undercutting me. Not only was I the lowest price they received, but I was way lower than the others. In one case, they got 4 proposals, mine at around $3,000, and the other 3 were clustered around $8,000 each. But because I was so far off, they thought that I had misunderstood the project or I didn't know what I was doing. So they dismissed my bid entirely and went with one of the others. And that's when it hit me. The problem with my losing all those bids wasn't that I was a bad designer. The problem was that my price created a perception problem. See, as a designer, you're not just selling design skills. You're selling communication, research, and relationship building. You're becoming a partner to their business, something they can't get on those freelance platforms, no matter how cheap the price is. That value is worth more than you think. But here's the thing about perceived value. People naturally assume expensive means better. I mean, a $2,000 an hour designer must be better than a $50 an hour designer, right? Well, maybe not, but that's what clients believe. And in business, perception matters. So what did I do? I raised my rates, and I went from $50 an hour to $70 an hour, a 40% jump. Now, keep in mind, that was in the mid-2000s. I charge much higher than that now. In fact, I rarely use hourly pricing these days. You can check out my video, I'll link to it somewhere up here, on pricing strategies for your design business to learn more about pricing your design work. But regardless of how you price, the same principles that applied way back then apply today. Price equals perception, and higher prices equals more professionalism. And you know what happened when I raised my prices? I didn't lose a single client, not one. In fact, 2 of my best clients reached out and said it was about time. They were shocked that I hadn't raised my prices sooner. And after that increase, something shifted. I started winning more proposals and getting better clients. Simple one-off projects, stuff like wedding invitations or baby announcements, those sort of designs, the things I hated doing, they all stopped. Instead, I started landing corporate events, award shows, high-end concerts, and black tie galas. Same skills required, same effort, but a different caliber of client. Let me show you the math, and I'll use nice round numbers to make it easier. Say you have 10 regular clients, and each one of them is giving you 2 hours of work per week. That's 20 billable hours, and let's say you're charging $100 an hour. You're making $2,000 per week. Now, raise your hourly rate to $125 an hour, and you'll probably lose 0 clients. But let's say, in a worst case scenario, 2 clients leave you. Now you have 8 clients, still at 2 hours each. That's 16 billable hours at your new rate of $125 an hour. You're now making, well, would you look at that? $2,000 per week. You lost 2 clients, but made the same amount of money, but you also freed up 4 hours every week. And you can use those hours for marketing your business, networking, or just relaxing. And if you lose 0 clients, which is the much more likely scenario, you're back at 20 billable hours, but now at $125 an hour. That's $2,500 per week, an extra $500, just because you charged what you're worth. And an amazing thing happens when you raise your rates. You start attracting better clients, clients with deeper senses of trust in your abilities. And the best thing is that higher priced clients typically have larger budgets. They have more projects, and they're serious about working with someone they view as professional. They're not shopping around for the cheapest option. They want the best option. Think about it from their perspective. They get a call from one designer offering to redesign their website for, say, $2,000. Then another call offering the same service for $5,000. Who are they going to think is the more professional of the two? The more expensive one. Because in the business world, perception matters, and you get what you pay for. Look at Starbucks, for example. Their coffee isn't objectively better than McDonald's coffee, and yet they charge much more, and people still line up for it. Or luxury cars. A Mercedes gets you from point A to B just the same as a Ford does, but people pay premium because of perceived value. Your design work is the same. When you charge professional rates, clients perceive you as a professional deserving those rates. Now here's something else to consider. Technology is making your job faster, which means you're losing money if you don't raise your rates. Now, of course, this is based on hourly rates, which I mentioned in that other video I told you about is not necessarily the best way, but we're using that as a baseline here. So if you're charging by the hour, technology is not your friend. We can now do things with AI that we either couldn't do before or would take us hours to create or would cost us a lot of money because we had to hire someone else to do it for us. When I started in the design industry, adding a drop shadow to a photo in Photoshop took 5 to 10 minutes per photo. You needed to duplicate layers, feather edges, fill it with a shadowy color, adjust the opacity, and then move it around to where you wanted the shadow to be. And of course, computers back then were much slower, so each one of these tasks took several seconds, if not several minutes. It was quite the process. And then, when Adobe updated Photoshop, they added the ability to create a drop shadow with one click, done in seconds. So software, hardware, and of course the recent AI advances have compressed hours of work into minutes. And if you don't raise your hourly rates to compensate, you're actually losing money because of progress. What used to be able to charge an hours of work for, now you get done in seconds. So you're making less. Now, that's not a reason to lower your prices. It's a reason to raise them. Because with these progresses, these advancements, your efficiency has increased. We're talking about raising your rates, and you might be worried about telling clients, wondering how they'll take the news that they'll have to pay more for the services they're used to getting from you. Now, I'm not saying this is the best way to do it, but here's what I did when I raised mine. Nothing. I didn't make a big announcement. In fact, I didn't announce it at all. I just raised my rates at the start of the new year and invoiced accordingly. But if you want to announce it, don't make a big deal out of it. Just send a quick note stating that as of such and such a date, your new rate will be this. And if a client asks why, you've got plenty of answers. You've got more experience. You've got better equipment. You've got a deeper knowledge. You're delivering more value than you did previously. But the biggest benefit of raising prices isn't just the money. It's the type of work you attract. When I started, I was local. About 95% of my clients were in my area. But as I raised my rates over the years, I attracted bigger clients from outside my region. Now, less than 10% of my clients are local. My client base became geographically diverse, which means I'm less dependent on any single market. And the work quality improved. I'm not designing simple brochure-style websites anymore, or at least not a lot of them. I'm now designing high-end sites built for conversion. I'm working with clients who respect what I do and value the relationship. So here's my question for you. If raising your rates by 20% means losing one client but making more money in fewer hours, why wouldn't you do it? The answer is fear. Fear you'll lose business, fear clients will say no, but the data shows that that doesn't usually happen. And even if it does, the math still works in your favor. Your design work has value, real value, not Fiverr value, not budget basement value, professional value. So raise your prices, attract better clients, do better work, and actually enjoy running your design business. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, please subscribe to see more strategies for running a smarter design business. Until next time, stay creative.